Alright everybody, it's December 22nd. I'm making a video on my thoughts on Star Wars The Force Awakens, which I saw on Thursday, and it's now Monday night. I had all weekend to think about it, how I thought about the movie. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, obviously. Let's get into it a little bit. I'll just start basically by going over the plot a little bit. It happens approximately 30 years after the destruction of the second Death Star. So already 2 Death Stars have blown up. Luke Skywalker is the last Jedi, and he's completely disappeared. Everybody's looking for him. There's this thing called the First Order. It's basically the remains of the fallen galactic empire. These guys are no joke. They basically kill everyone and anything that gets in their way. Unlike the old galactic empire, which did obviously kill people, but it was always to build like some kind of structured society, almost like their own form of just crazy government, and they definitely killed people. But it seems to me like the First Order is definitely just about killing people, and one of the very first scenes in the movie proves my theory on that one. Anyways, let's get back to it. They're basically searching for Luke, and they want to kill the last remnants of the Republic, basically. There's a resistance. It's a small military force backed by Leia, basically. General is now General Organa, pretty much. They have bunch of pilots, a pretty good squadron, a bunch of ships, and a really cool base that they show in the movie. So basically one of the first scenes in the movie is a pilot by the name of Poe. He goes down to the planet of Jakku, and he meets up with this guy. He's a village elder. I wrote his name down here because it's a little bit hard to pronounce. Lor Santika. He's played by an actor named Max von Sydow. Wow, I'm really butchering that probably. Anyways, Poe goes down to him, and he has a map of where to find Luke Skywalker. So there's like a 1-minute scene of Poe talking to this guy, and you're hoping for some kind of... the whole movie, basically, I'm just sitting there and I'm like hoping for like a major dialogue scene between 2 important characters that really explains more of some of the gaps that I've been wanting to see filled for the past 10 years. But they basically give you a bunch of really small cuts of information throughout the whole movie, which I'll kind of get into a little bit. So basically, Poe goes down there, and he's got his droid with him. Basically, we're talking about BB-8 right here, and BB-8 is pretty much the smartest person in the whole movie. Pretty much just like all the other Star Wars movies, where R2-D2 is basically the hero and the savior of everyone. This little guy. BB-8 pretty much takes R2-D2's place and runs the show, basically. He's also a major comic relief for the movie, and it's just hilarious. Some of the scenes that they do are hilarious with BB-8. We'll get into that also a little bit more. So they're on Jakku. Poe's literally talking to the village elder for like minutes, and basically Kylo Ren, who is obviously the new Darth Vader, he's a Sith. He's pretty much an apprentice at this stage. But there's something that I have to stop and talk about right now. So they kill, like, the stormtroopers kill the entire village of people, and Poe is basically got a shot on Kylo Ren at this point, and he points his blaster at him. He pulls the trigger, and Kylo Ren is so powerful that he literally holds up his hand and stops the blaster rifle bolt in mid-air. And it just stays there. At that point, I'm like, wow. Because even Luke and Anakin and all the other Jedi through any Star Wars episode you've ever seen, that's never happened. They all block it with their lightsaber, or they dodge it, or whatever. This guy literally stops the blaster bolt in mid-air. So right then and there, you're like, okay, this guy must be super powerful. And he goes on to, I mean, at this point, you have no reason to disagree with that. There's no disbelief whatsoever that this guy is awesome. He's wearing a mask. He's basically a full-on Sith warrior. So, anyways, Poe gets captured, and they take him on a shuttle, and he's getting interrogated on the ship. He finds out, Kylo Ren interrogates him with the Force. You know, he puts his hand up to his head, interrogates him, gets the information out that he gave the map to Luke to BB-8, the droid, who is still on Jakku. And he told BB-8 to basically get the hell out of Dodge and just go as far as he could, as fast as he could, and not get caught. So BB-8 runs into Rey. Now Rey is a scavenger girl that lives on Jakku. Just picture Tatooine with full-on desert, and she's basically scavenging parts off of like anything she can find out in the desert to just feed herself at this point. And she finds BB-8 being trapped by this guy. It's just like a creature that lives on Jakku, and she tells him to get lost, and BB-8 stays with her for the night or whatever, and she takes him to town the next day. Well, next day rolls around, and of course shit hits the fan immediately, right? And meanwhile, Poe meets up with Finn, who is not called Finn at that point. He's got like a, I don't know, M-8752, whatever code name they give stormtroopers, because they don't have names apparently. And he's Finn was at the village on Jakku, and he like didn't want to kill all those people because he actually has a conscience. And he basically breaks Poe out of jail, and they steal a TIE fighter, which is an amazing scene, by the way, because Poe is an awesome pilot, and just stealing the TIE fighter was pretty awesome. I'm not, I can't do it justice, but it was pretty awesome. So Let's see, where am I here? Alright, so Rey, BB-8 are on Jakku. They go to the village, and somehow Finn crash lands on Jakku also, and they end up in this small village. It's not even a village, it's like a shanty town in the middle of the desert where a bunch of like thieves and scavengers meet up to sell stuff for food to some guy that is a total jerk, like normal on these desert planets or whatever. And so Kylo Ren sends like a squad down to the planet to find the droid, and they obviously find him because shit hits the fan. And so they're all running for their life. Like, so Finn and Rey meet up, and he says, I'm part of the Resistance, and all this, that, and the other. And they start running for their lives. So, like, here's a funny thing that happens is they, like, are running for their lives, and they're trying to find a ship to get off planet. And he's like, what about this ship? And she's like, oh, that's a piece of crap. We don't want that thing. And they don't even show us what she's talking about at that point. She goes, let's try for this quad jumper or whatever. And so they're running up to it, and like they shoot it, and the ship explodes right in front of them. And she goes, oh, well, I bet that piece of crap over there will work just fine. So they pan the camera over, and the Millennium Falcon is just sitting there. And it's like, that's the piece of crap you were talking about? And like everyone in the whole audience is like cheering at this point because the Millennium Falcon happens to be sitting, rusting away at this junkyard shanty town in the middle of the desert on Jakku, which no one knows how it got there. They tell you a little bit later in the movie that it got stolen from Han Solo and Chewbacca, and they don't know who stole it. Anyways, she knows everything about ships and how to fix anything. Rey does. So they get in the Millennium Falcon, they get it running, and it's like the most epic flying scene. Like, she was born in that ship and she just knew how to fly it, apparently. Which is a cool thing, but a little bit hard to swallow. But it happens regardless. So they're flying in and out of anything and everything you can possibly imagine on Jakku, being chased by multiple TIE fighters, and they evade them. They get into space and they hyper jump out of there or whatever, you know. And so they're flying along for a little while, and they're arguing back and forth or conversating for like 5 seconds or whatever, because like I said, there's not a lot of dialogue in this movie, in my opinion. But the Falcon breaks down and is swallowed up by this freighter ship it's pretty enormous. And the doors open. I'll just make a long story short. Han Solo and Chewbacca walk onto the ship, and they're like, we're home. It's pretty amazing. And so from that point on, Han goes into basically explaining a little bit about how it was stolen from him, and they run this freighter ship now, and they're just trying to make ends meet. And there's like some gangs that show up, and just they get into this crazy fight on the freighter, which is fun because Han is like transporting these crazy alien beasts that like swallow people whole, and they roll around and they have these tentacles and stuff, and it's just hilarious. It's pretty fun scene. And of course they escape on the Falcon, and they leave and they go to the planet of Takodana and meet up with this little alien, which you don't know is little at the point, but her name is Maz Kanata. And she runs this local establishment on this planet that they get to. It's a green planet. And Rey walks off of the Falcon and she's just in awe because it's all green. And she's spent her entire life on this planet, Jakku, which is desert everywhere. And so she's just in awe. Anyways, they go into this bar, and it looks like ancient ruins in the middle of like some ancient Jedi temple on this planet. And it just happens to be Maz's bar. And they sit down, and Han Solo, Maz, Rey, Finn, and BB-8 are at this table, and finally there's some dialogue. And you're just like, so, okay. In my opinion, Maz is like the replacement for Yoda. She's 1,000 years old. Han even says that in the movie. He's like, she's 1,000 years old, and she's gonna help you take BB-8 back to the Resistance where he belongs and get this map in the right hands. And that's basically exactly what happens, only, of course, the First Order catches up with them, and Kylo Ren lands on the planet, and of course they freaking kill everyone again and destroy the bar. And so they've got Han and Chewie and Finn dead to rights. Like, the stormtroopers are all surrounding them. There's probably like 20 of them. And then all of a sudden, you see, like, on the distance, the the Resistance fighters coming across this lake. There's probably like 20 or 30 X-Wings flying across this lake, and Poe is in charge because he lived through the crash. And Han and Chewie and Finn are just looking at this like, okay, we're dead, but whatever. And of course the Resistance fighters and the X-Wings show up, and the stormtroopers just basically forget that they're even there almost, and they go running off. And Rey gets captured by Kylo Ren. But only after, so this is, I forgot a really important part, is she discovers Luke's lightsaber in the basement of this bar. And there's like a small dialogue scene between her and Maz, which is awesome. I've been waiting for this. And she has like a small, there's a cut scene where they show like basically cutscenes from like some of the old movies, which is pretty cool. But it doesn't really explain how Maz got the lightsaber. What's it doing in her basement? Is it just there for safekeeping? Did someone leave it so that Rey would find it later on? At that point in the movie, I immediately thought that basically Rey is either Han's daughter or Luke's daughter immediately, or Leia's daughter, or somehow related to the family in some way. And otherwise, why would she just be able to touch a lightsaber like that and have like some kind of flashback like that? That's like the first moment when I thought something like that was going on. It just made sense to me. So anyways, getting back to the attack, basically Poe single-handedly flies his X-Wing, shoots down like 10 X-Wings while he's targeting troops on the ground, and just they annihilate the stormtroopers, and Kylo Ren and like a group of like shuttles escape the attack with Rey, who's captured. And at this point, Kylo Ren knows that he needs BB-8 because he has the map and he wants to find Luke. And he basically uses the Force on Rey, and he says, we don't need the droid, she's got all the information I need. So they take her and they leave without BB-8. And I was just like, that's hilarious, you know? It's like typical droid evading a huge force and saving the day once again. Typical Star Wars style. It just seemed like that to me. Let's see here. So Kylo Ren has a master, basically, because he's not... You find out through small conversations that he's basically still learning the Force. He's not like a full-on master yet at all. And at that point, you're just like... He's not a full-on master, but he can stop. Like, my mind keeps going back to the blaster shot that he could stop in midair. Oh, and by the way, when he was done with that scene, he literally releases that blaster bolt and it finishes traveling through the air and, like, blows up a tent or something that was on the planet. So he has, like, immense power. And anyways, they take Rey to a Death Star. It's not... So that's number 3, by the way. And at this point, you find out it's not like a full-on built Death Star, but it's like a planet that they converted into a Death Star, basically. But it's a full planet. And it basically... I'm moving forward in the movie just to explain this. But it takes the power of a sun. And the planet's over here. It takes the power of a sun. It sucks it into their device, the power from the sun, into the Death Star planet. And then it targets whatever they want and basically uses like solar flare energy or whatever it is, shoots it all the way through the galaxy to blow up other planets or whatever they want it to blow up, like entire planets. And I'm just like, okay guys, seriously, like Death Star number 3, did you not pay the writers enough? I was just like, can we please come up with something better than like a third Death Star? And at this point, I'm just like, okay, whatever, you know. Whatever. Let's just watch it and have fun with it. At least I'm getting small bits and pieces of information. Another thing that went through my mind is like, at this point in the movie, when they have Rey and she's on the Death Star and she's tied up in this chair, I think her arms are down like this and she can't move. I'm sorry guys, I'm losing my voice. I just got off work. Anyways, she's tied up in this chair. Of course, he interrogates her and he finds out that she has Force capability and he can't get the information he needs. So to make a long story short, he leaves the room. During that conversation, he takes off his mask, which basically looks like that right there. Like, it's like a full-on mask like Darth Vader would wear. By the way, we find out that Kylo Ren is Leia's daughter, and his real name is Ben, so that makes Anakin, aka Darth Vader, his grandfather. And so he's got this mask. He takes off the mask, and there's not a damn thing wrong with his face. He's not like... It's not like he needs a mask for anything. He doesn't need it to help breathe like Anakin did because he had major trauma or anything like that. He just wears the mask because he's a freak. Like, he's like a very confused teenager who's like lashing out, is basically what this boils down to, in my opinion, is what it seems like. And he leaves the room. So he leaves Rey there tied up in this thing, and of course there's one freaking stormtrooper. There's one, right? So this is like the cheesiest part of the whole movie to me. And I'm going to just get through it as fast as possible. She basically says to the stormtrooper, "Untie me, undo my hands, and let me go," and walk away, or something along those lines. And this is exactly what happens right here. The stormtrooper pulls out his D20, rolls it, and hits a nat 20, and he goes, "What'd you say to me?" He's like, "How about you shut the F up, shut the hell up, before I tighten those farther." And like typical D&D fashion, Rey waits till her next turn, and this time she rolls her nat 20, right? But she uses an action point and a daily power, and he goes, "Oh, let me just untie those for you." At this point, I'm just like, that is the biggest cheese. As the stormtrooper unties her and walks out of the room, she's like, "Oh, and by the way, leave your blaster rifle as well." And he literally drops it as his way out the door and goes, "Oh, okay, no problem." And I'm just like, I looked over at my wife, and she looks at me, and I just put my head down and I just shake it like this, and I'm like, that's Disney. Like, I don't even know how else to explain it. That was like the biggest cheese for me, because Rey didn't even know about the Force, according to the movie, up until like 12 hours ago, like before she got captured or whatever. And all of a sudden, she's like a Jedi Master who can just use the Force on people and tell them what to do because they're weak-minded. And I'm just like, all right, let's just go with it. Again, let's just go with it, you know, because what the hell? It's Star Wars, and Disney paid $4 billion. They must know what they're doing, apparently. So, alright, she escapes. They're on a planet, by the way. Like this gigantic planet. And this base basically goes around the whole planet. And it just so happens that Han and the whole crew go meet up with the Republic and Leia Organa, General Organa at this point. And there's like the usual faces at this, like C-3PO's there, R2-D2 is there, and Admiral Akbar is there, who has like a one sentence in the entire movie, and they're basically plotting a plan of attack to go blow up another Death Star, and the whole conversation literally takes less than 60 seconds. I swear it had to have been, it couldn't have been more than 2 minutes long, where they're just like, okay, it's a Death Star, only it's bigger, it has to have weakness, and Poe's like, I'll just take my squadron in there and we'll just blow it up, and Admiral Akbar goes, but there's shields, it's a trap, or whatever. And Han goes, oh, I know what we can do because I've seen this movie before. I'll go take down the shields. And Chewie goes, ah. And C-3PO goes, the odds of you completing this mission are 3 million to 1. It's like, we've seen this movie before, guys. And so anyways, it literally takes them 2 minutes to plan this attack. And Finn goes, I know how to get the shields down. And Han's like, I like this kid already. And so that's basically it. The only thing that surprised me, or maybe it didn't, but the one thing I noticed about the whole time that they went to the Republic, there was 2 things that stuck out in my mind. Number one, BB-8, the first thing he does when he gets there is he rolls up the R2-D2. He literally bangs his head up against the R2-D2 trying to get him to wake up because he knows he has the other piece of the map. Like, he just feels it because obviously the droids, like I said at the beginning, are the smartest people in this movie. And C-3PO comes up to BB-8 and he's like, typical C-3PO, know everything. He's like, R2-D2 has been in rest mode since Luke left or whatever. And I'm just like, seriously? Like, he's that, like, down that Luke left that he won't even power up? I mean, when I think about it, after watching every single episode of the Clone Wars like 3 times, Anakin and R2-D2 went through way more together, and he was way more attached to Anakin Skywalker than he ever was to Luke. I mean, Luke even gave him away to Jabba the Hutt at one point, and he had no clue as to whether he was going to get him back or not. Anakin actually risked his life on several occasions just to get his droid back because he loved him that much. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm moving on. BB-8 has a feeling. R2-D2 has a map to Luke Skywalker because at this point in the movie we know that BB-8 doesn't have the whole map. Alright. That happens when they first get to the Republic base. Alright. The second thing of note is Leia and Han's conversation about Ben, aka Kylo Ren, and Leia says, I know that there's still good in him, and the last thing she says to Han before he leaves the planet to go face Kylo Ren and take down the shields on the Death Star is, bring our son home, because I know there's still good in him, or that's almost exactly what she says. And at this point, I'm just like, seriously? Poe Dameron was on Jakku when he single-handedly gave the order to kill like an entire village of people because he didn't like the way they looked at him or whatever, like for no reason. And he's killed, like, at this point, how many people? But there's still good in him. And the whole time, this is my thing, okay? The whole time I'm waiting for The Force Awakens to come out, I'm just like, please don't kill Han Solo. He's my favorite character. I friggin' love Harrison Ford. I friggin' love all of the Indiana Jones movies. I love Han Solo. He's the man. He's the smuggler. He's the guy. And you just know at this point, as soon as Leia says that, bring our son home, that they're going to kill off Harrison Ford's character in this movie. I didn't even have to watch the rest of the movie at this point. But I did. I kept going because it's Star Wars and you have to keep watching. So, alright. Long story short, Han, Finn, Chewbacca go to the planet, aka the Death Star, set a bunch of explosives throughout the whole part of the Death Star that they need to take down to lower the shields. And Han Solo sees Kylo Ren, aka Ben, his son, on this long, long bridge. And I'm saying to myself, don't go out there, Han. Just turn around, walk away, get in the Millennium Falcon, and fly off into the wild blue yonder, and go retire somewhere, and live out your life doing whatever you want to do. Like, don't go out there. The kid is the devil. He's killed countless people. Like, what does he do? He walks out there on the bridge and confronts his son. And at this point, you've already seen a scene in the movie where Kylo Ren is confronted by his master, the Supreme Leader Snoke, played by Andy Serkis, and he portrays himself as this gigantic individual in the movie because he's coming out of like a projection, and he's literally like 100 feet tall. Now, I don't know what race he is in the movie, but if you took this guy from the from the Rebels, and took all of his face paint off and put a big scar down the middle of his face, he looks exactly like this guy in the projection. And basically, he tells him to fulfill your destiny as coming over to the dark side, you have to kill your father. You've already seen that part of the movie, and he has to tell him all about how he failed to get the information out of Rey, and it's just the whole thing. There's some other scenes in that that are important. I'm losing my voice, so I got to keep going here. Yeah, just a second. Alright. Long story short, Han walks out there. I know there's still good in you. Supreme Leader Snoke is just using you for your power. He doesn't care about you. Me and your mother care about you. We love you, and we want you to come back. I want you to come back with me. And he goes, Kylo Ren gives Han this speech about how he's worried that he's not going to be able to defeat the Supreme Leader Snoke, and that he needs Han's help to overcome what his final test is. It's this heavy burden on him or whatever. It makes it feel like that. And of course, he wants to help his son, and he's like, I'll do anything for you, you know? Just come back, you know? And so, he's holding out his lightsaber, and what does he do? He freaking stabs his dad, basically, through the heart with this lightsaber, and Han, like, is just like, oh, like, they show him just, it's the sickest thing I've ever seen. I was so pissed, and you could not hear, the theater I was in, was jam-packed full, and when Han died, everyone in the theater was so pissed off, you could not hear a pin drop in the theater. I was just like, so disappointed. I mean, I understand the plot and why they did it. There's just a million other ways they could have written it so that Han doesn't die and goes off into the wild blue yonder. And, I mean, if he doesn't want to make any more movies, fine, but don't kill off his character because it's Han Solo, man. That's how I feel. Whatever, he dies. He falls off the bridge. Chewie goes nuts. And of course, Chewbacca always has his huge crossbow. And in this movie, they make a point of showing it several times. Chewie immediately takes a shot at Kylo Ren with his crossbow and shoots him like right through this area, like kind of in his abs section, and it goes straight through him and comes out the other side. And he immediately hits the explosives on the building, which lowers the shields enough for Poe Dameron to fly his X-Wing into the building and do what Poe does. Like, he just... Pew, 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 pew. It was amazing. Like, every time they show Poe fly a ship, it's like... awesome. That's all I can say about it. It's awesome. So, they take down the shields. They cause a chain reaction. And basically, the planet explodes and turns into another sun. Like, it doesn't explode like Alderaan did when the Death Star blew it up or whatever. It literally, like, collapses on itself and forms another sun because it had all that energy stored up in it, that because they were about to fire it on the Rebel base. Anyways, they save the day. They blow up the Death Star a third time, which is, you know, it is what it is. It's fun. And at this point, Kylo Ren is injured, and he sees Rey and Finn go up to the surface. He follows them up there. This is where the movie really starts to break down for me, because right now they have a huge fight scene between Finn, Rey, and Kylo Ren. Remember, earlier, 5 minutes into the movie, Kylo Ren sticks up his hand and single-handedly stops a blaster bolt in mid-air and just holds it there while he walks around all cocky with his hands behind his back asking questions or whatever. And at this point, Finn sees him coming, uses Luke's old lightsaber, and fights Kylo Ren. Now, he fights admirably for a guy with no Force abilities, but he loses, and he loses big time. Like, he was gonna die. Kylo Ren slashed him on his back really hard with the lightsaber, and he was out. Like, at this point in the movie, Finn drops the lightsaber into on the ground, and he's like, that lightsaber belongs to me. And he tries to use the Force to grab the lightsaber, and at the same time, Rey is like behind him. Now keep in mind, Rey has been practicing the Force for at least 24 whole hours now, so she should be a Master Jedi by now, right? So she basically also uses the Force at the same time Kylo Ren uses the Force to get the lightsaber, and it flies right past Kylo Ren and goes into Rey's hands. And you're just like, oh yeah, that just happened. Anyways, they fight, and if this was an actual fight, Kylo Ren would Force choke Rey into a tree and cut her in half. Because he can stop blaster bolts in midair, apparently. But instead, Rey kicks his ass, hands Kylo Ren his butt, basically, and a fissure opens in the ground because the planet's coming apart, and she runs off. And there's a whole scene where Supreme Leader Snoke is talking to his main guy, which I totally forget his name right now. I apologize. General Hux, leader of the primary First Order. General Hux. He's talking to him, and he's like, bring Kylo Ren to me. We need to finish his training. So that's like 20 minutes before the movie's over. You find out Kylo Ren is basically not even fully trained, and he can stop blaster bolts. But then he gets his ass kicked by a girl who's been practicing the Force for 24 hours and had absolutely, positively no Force guidance by anyone whatsoever. Okay. Just go with it, because it's a Star Wars movie. You can't stop, right? Okay, we're going with it. So, we're just going to go towards the end of the movie now, because we're almost there. They go back to the Rebel base, okay? And remember how I told you BB-8 said, knocked his head on R2-D2 and said, you have the other piece of the map, don't you? And R2-D2 wouldn't wake up. Well, at this point, when they go back to the base and everybody's celebrating because they blew up the Death Star, BB-8, all of a sudden, R2-D2 wakes up. Literally, this is R2-D2's only scene in the whole movie. R2-D2 rolls up into the middle of where all the important bigwigs, like Leia Organa and all those people, are standing, and uses his little thing and projects the map into the air. And then BB-8 goes over to Poe and he goes, can I please have my little piece of the map in droid language? And Poe says, sure, buddy, and hands him the other piece of the map and projects his little thing into the air and fits it perfectly, and they go, oh, now we know where Luke is. And you're just like, seriously? Like, BB-8 said that an hour and a half ago when we first got to the Rebel base. I was like, oh, somebody just rolled a nat 1 on natural perception. It couldn't be R2-D2 that has it. Of course not. Because in the first movie, who used R2-D2 to hide something? Oh, it must have been... oh, that's right. It was Leia. It's just like, oh my god. Come on, people. Even BB-8 knows it. So they know where Luke is. They know where he is. And it's like mind-blowing, right? Like the whole time. Like, I've been thinking about this all weekend. And I'm just like, what would Yoda say? Let's find out.
Mind what you have learned, save you it can.
Yeah, mind what you have learned, save you it can. That's what they, yeah. Anyways, Rey gets the lightsaber, travels to this island which she dreamt about when she was living on Jakku, flies the Falcon with Chewie, because Han's dead now, and lands, walks up this island, and it takes her like hours to climb all the way to the top of this island, which happens in 15 seconds in the movie. And you're like, alright, there's a figure standing, he's wearing a robe, it's gotta be Luke. You're like so excited. Finally, Luke is gonna say something in the movie. It's gonna be epic. It's gonna clear everything up. And they show Luke, and he takes his cowl off. He's got a cowl on, and he's like this. I'm Luke Skywalker. I've got a cowl on, and he takes it off, and he's got gray hair, and he's got a big gray beard. And Rey walks up to him, takes the lightsaber, and goes like this at Luke, and she stands like this for like what seems 3 hours. It seems like 3 hours she's holding the lightsaber because you're waiting for something inspirational to happen. And you know what happens? Luke stares at her, and then they show Rey, and Rey's staring at Luke, and then they show Luke, and Luke is staring at Rey. And you know what? The movie ends, and Luke doesn't say a single thing. And I'm just like, I look over at my wife, and my wife looks over at me, and she's like, what the just happened? And I'm just like, it's Disney. And the guy sitting next to me goes, I guess we wait 2 years for the next one? And I go, sweet. I was like, alright, I don't know what just happened. And the movie ends, and you're like, walking out, and you've got this huge gap in your chest, this huge void, and you're like, they didn't explain anything to me, and now I have all these questions. Like, where did Supreme Leader Snoke come from? Why does Kylo Ren wear a mask when there's nothing wrong with his face? Who constructed BB-8? Not in real life, because we know they built it in Colorado, but in the movie. Why is the Millennium Falcon in a desert shipyard? Why is Han Solo flying a freighter when he saved the galaxy? Shouldn't he be like some rich guy living on a planet with hot babes everywhere, and Chewie's got like some awesome new hairstyle, and they go out every day and they fly their ship around and do loop-de-loops and say how awesome they are to each other? Why do they have to fly a freighter and transport weird aliens from point A to point B for pennies on the dollar? Why are there no other Jedi yet? I mean, there's like billions of questions now that I have. Like, if Kylo Ren killed off all the Jedi and betrayed Luke, why didn't Luke just kill the little bastard? Why does he go hang his head in shame and on a freaking island somewhere on a planet no one knows how to get to? Like, why does he let Han die and other people fight his battles? There's just so many things. Like, anyways, I'm going to end it right there because I'm losing my voice. And
always in motion is the future. You must unlearn what you have learned.
You must unlearn what you have learned. I'm going out with a big